Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're looking at a Sega Saturn classic and one of the only two not new Sonic games on the console. Now, Sonic Jam was released in 1997 and it featured Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic Knuckles, as well as a 3D world called Sonic World. Now, keep in mind this game came out in the middle of 1997. By 1997, the Saturn had pretty much already been out of the race. It had already been released for more than 2 years, and no new Sonic game had made it to the console. Fans got Sonic 3D Blast before this game, but basically that was just a beefed up port of the Genesis game. Sonic Jam was a part of something called Project Sonic, which was an effort to drum up excitement for both Sega and Sonic itself. The Saturn was really falling behind, and I think at this point, despite the fact that Sega had basically all but given up on the Saturn in a North American region, realized that the only thing that could maybe really get them back in the race was to get their mascot onto the console. Sonic Jam did get mostly positive reviews upon release, though some people did say it's basically non-essential because you already had the Genesis games. However, we're looking at this game in 2023, so how does it hold up? It's really worth diving into the extra features first, because for anyone who's played the Genesis games, it wouldn't be all that exciting just to play cheap ports of those games. There's a lot that's done with these games, and a lot of quality of life upgrades that really make this a worthy package. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is that you can now save it in any game. In the original Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 on the Genesis, there was no way to save, so it's very welcome to not have to beat these games in one sitting. Secondly, there are also 3 difficulty options. You have Original, which is the original Genesis experience, and arguably how some people will say they're meant to be played. You have Normal, which alters the stages a bit and makes them more convenient, I guess, and slightly easier. I don't see a huge difference here, but this is actually the difficulty I usually stick to. And then there's an Easy mode, which adds platforms and dumbs down the enemies, and it actually makes it so you only play one level of each zone, so you can fly through the game. So it's actually awesome for recording purposes because you can get a bunch of different environments, but it's really easy, so it's there for that purpose, I guess. Not really my thing. And another small feature is that you can play these special stages alone, I guess to practice. That wouldn't really interest me. Or the time attack mode, which also doesn't really interest me, but kinda cool. And additionally, something that's really cool, you can turn off time limits in all games, which I love. I am definitely not a time limit guy. And you can add certain features to certain games. We'll get to that in that section. Let's get the elephant out of the room first. So there is a little 3D area in Sonic Jam known as Sonic World, which uses the Nights into Dreams engine. I actually think it looks half decent. I mean, obviously it doesn't hold up by today's standards, but I think it actually looks kinda cool. And when you first go into it, it is kind of cool. You get to control Sonic in a legit 3D environment, which was a first at the time. This area does have a couple little platforming things, you can get some coins, but there's not really much to do here. Instead, it's more of a museum, so you can go check out art pieces, some videos, you can see some character art, and a couple extra things. Again, it's one of those features in the game that is initially a little bedazzling, but very quickly gets old because the area is pretty much bare bones, so it feels like a teaser instead of a full-fledged part of the game. So that's about it for the extra stuff in kind of Sonic World there, but really the meat and the potatoes is in the games, and it's really worth mentioning that these games were built completely from the ground up for the Sega Saturn. These are not cheap ports. There's stuff like bugs fixed, they look a little better, and they're optimized for the Sega Saturn, so in actuality, they put a lot of effort into actually getting these games to run on the Sega Saturn. So let's start with the original Sonic the Hedgehog. This is admittedly my least favorite game in the Genesis quadrilogy, I guess. The first thing to note though, that makes it a little better in my opinion, is that the spin dash is now included in the game. It's an option, you can turn it on or off. This did make me happy, and in the underground water stage, I used it a lot. However, I was surprised at how little I actually did use it. It was very obvious to me that the original Sonic was built without this mechanic in mind, and you really don't need the spin dash in the game. Nevertheless, it's still welcome. And honestly, Sonic 1 still holds up as a good game, but it feels a little slower than the other games, and honestly, for me, what really makes it hard to really get into is the fact that there's 3 zones per world, so you are in one zone for a very long time. Jumping on to Sonic 2. This is actually arguably my favorite game, like many people in the original Genesis quadrilogy. And it's ironically the one I played the least on here just because of how many times I've played it on other compilations. So I've played it on Sonic Jam, but I've never actually beaten it. Nevertheless, this is Sonic 2, and it comes with save features now and a little bit of light touching up, which makes it a little bit more playable than the Genesis version. And a really nice touch is with Sonic and Knuckles locked on with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 cartridge, which you can do on Sonic Jam. You can also play this game with Knuckles. So yeah, Sonic 2 is great on Sonic Jam. Then we have Sonic 3, which is a game that I absolutely love. This is another game that might be my favorite on the Genesis quadrilogy. It's a bit infamous now because it's been kind of cut from a bunch of different compilations, the more modern ones. And when it is included, like on the Sonic Origins collection, some of the original music was cut out due to Michael Jackson. And copyright issues. Yeah, that's right. So that music is intact on Sonic Jam because this game came out in 1997 when MJ was still going. So yeah, you get the original music here, you get the gameplay. It's absolutely fantastic. It's the original game that you remember, and man, I didn't play this game that much as a kid, and that sucks because this is a really, really good Sonic game. Last but not least is Sonic and Knuckles. Now, the first thing to mention here is it's super cool. The original Genesis cartridge had a lock-on feature where you could stick on one of the other Sonic cartridges. Sonic Jam kept that, so you can literally combine this game with Sonic 1, Sonic 2, or Sonic 3. Obviously, Sonic 3 has the most meaty experience. You get to play through both games, connected with all the characters. But Sonic 1, I think you get you can play the special stages with Knuckles or something. And Sonic 2, you can play with Knuckles, so that's kind of cool. And also, I guess this version has a couple other things too. I guess like some of the stages are altered when you use the lock-on feature, and I guess you can collect Super Emeralds. Honestly, I'm not that good at Sonic. I never get the Chaos Emeralds. I can get one or two, then these I either can't find the secret levels or they just smoke me. However, keep on going with Sonic and Knuckles. So I love that they added in the lock-on feature, but this is honestly a good game. It's the one I have the least amount of nostalgia for. I don't even know if I played this game when it was relevant. And I find it really, really difficult, in a way that none of the other Sonic games are. I feel like it should be about as difficult as the other ones, but honestly, this game kicks my butt. The second world, that sky spaceship zone, ugh. I just keep dying over and over again. So I don't know, maybe I'm a noob with Sonic and Knuckles. Still like it. I think the graphics in it are incredible for the Genesis, has a good soundtrack, and I do intend to beat this one in the future. So, Sonic Jam in 2023. How does it hold up? You would think it would be superfluous because of the Sonic Origins collection, but in my opinion, Sonic Jam just might still be the best Sonic compilation ever. You get 4 great Sonic games, you get extra features including saving and difficulty options, you keep the lock-on technology from Sonic and Knuckles. Now, yeah, Sonic World is admittedly nothing more than kind of a diversion, but I think Sonic fans will really appreciate some of the museum features and the ability to see the first truly 3D Sonic experience, which is kind of cool. Overall, Sonic Jam is far more than just a lazy port job, and in my opinion, it remains one of the best Saturn games. This is a more optimized, convenient experience than the original games on the Genesis, and unlike some of the newer collections, you get Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles with the original soundtrack intact. I want to finish by just saying that this was just not the Sonic game people were clamoring for in 1997. And obviously people wanted a new Sonic, and that's very justified, and I can see how this game would be really disappointing for Sega Saturn owners who had had the original Genesis games and played them to death already. However, this is one of the most played Saturn games in my collection. This is a shoo-in for the best Saturn game ever made in my opinion, and that's just a testament to how much work was done with these games for the Saturn. And if you want this game a little bit cheaper, I highly, highly, highly recommend the Japanese version of the game. I think it has a cooler cover than the English version, and all the menus are in English anyway. You can usually get that version for around $30 or $40, and I just shudder to think of how much the English version is. Probably over $100 at this point, I'm sure. That's it for Sonic Jam. This is totally a rad game that probably gets overlooked because it wasn't new Sonic, but you really need to play this one and have it in your collection if you own a Sega Saturn. It is still a fantastic collection in 2023. Alright guys, please let me know. Have you played Sonic Jam? What do you think of it? And what is your favorite Sonic game on the collection? I'm going to say Sonic 2, but I really think Sonic 3 could overtake that if I were to play it a little bit more. That's it for me. Let me know what you guys think. Please click like, please click subscribe. See you next time. Game on.